Hello and welcome to Tank and AV News. My name's Tom, and today is a video looking at some 172 scale pre-built models. I haven't done one of these videos in a while. For people who watch the channel, you may or may not know that I collect 172 scale stuff, mostly pre-built. I'm not much of a modeler myself, so there's probably a lot of people out there, obviously, that watch channels that do have people who are professional modelers. That's not what I do. I just like to buy the stuff off the shelf, so that's what I review. Today is a little different in that I've got a bunch of stuff over here that is 3D printed stuff. Stuff that I bought online from people who do some 3D printing. So I want to talk about those a little bit. And then over here I got three that are not 3D printed. So we'll start with those first. I got these a few months ago. I don't really have anything else I plan on buying anytime soon. And some of these I had to wait for like almost 3 months to get these in the mail from Russia. This one is, of course, the World War II English Tortoise assault gun, or at least one of the versions of the Tortoise. I think there were several. And this one is from Eaglemoss Fabry, I believe. And you know, those are usually not the most high quality kits, but this one actually looks pretty good, I think. It's slightly shiny as far as the paint, but as far as the detail for what it is, and I got this one at a pretty reasonable price. Most of them online were going for prices I wasn't really willing to pay, frankly. But it's just too cool a vehicle not to have. I mean, it's such a massive chunk. I mean, like, look at the size of those tracks. These things are like, you know, this whole vehicle is substantially wider than like a Jagdtiger. And you know, I think the thing weighed like a good 10 tons more than a Jagdtiger. So just an impressive, cool, oddball vehicle. So glad to add that one to the collection. Next is another Eaglemoss product. This one is T10 D10m, I believe. So the last of the Soviet heavy tanks of the Cold War period. This one is not particularly good in terms of quality. It's pretty basic. Which the funny thing with the Eaglemoss stuff is that their Russian vehicles tend to not be as good quality as some of the foreign vehicles they do. But it's not really any other options if you want a pre-built T10. You know, it's an interesting vehicle to look at too, because it is really quite small for the amount of armor and firepower this thing held. It's really not much or any bigger than a lot of the Soviet mediums or MBTs. And just for comparison's sake, let me pick up my so this one's from Dragon. This is a US M103 heavy tank. I don't know if you can see the difference. I mean, the difference in turret size. I'm try to lean them up without having the turret on the M103 fall off. But they are, size-wise, extremely different vehicles. And that's part of the reason I like collecting these little models, is because it does allow you to, you know, rather than just looking at pictures in books, look at these things up close and compare them. The last one here, this is from Dragon. This one I bought primarily because it was on sale quite cheap. This is the Type 2 Kami, I think is how you say it, World War II Japanese amphibious tank. They're an amphibious light tank. Now this one does not have, they do make kits that have the add-on, the sort of add-on like bow and rear end that would allow it to float in the seas, and this one does not have this, so this is the configuration it would use on land when it's being used as a light tank. And as you can see, it's still a whole lot of hull for a little tiny turret. So, you know, just for sake of comparison, here is a Dragon, the Hago, the Type 95, and you can see a pretty considerable size difference between these two vehicles, even though their combat capabilities were pretty similar. They're both little light tanks of pretty limited firepower and frankly limited usefulness. Alright, on to the 3D printed stuff. So the 3D printed stuff, you know, I just thought it would be interesting to see what it was like, because I have not had any experience with that technology, and I saw people were selling these, and they had quite an interesting variety of different vehicles that were available in different sizes, and you know, these were all pretty cheap compared to other pre-built stuff. And I would say in general the technology is not quite there. These really aren't up to the level of being scale models. They're close, but not quite. It's probably better suited for making gaming pieces and whatnot. But that said, given some of the model types they had available, stuff that just is not available at all in pre-built stuff, and some of it's not even available in kits. So starting with France World War I stuff, and these, they all, you get them there in like sort of a gray plastic or whatever color material the printer used. I had a little bit of green paint in the basement, so I just sort of spray painted them real quick and just put some black on the tracks. But these are not properly painted by any stretch. But here we have a little tiny Renault FT. So nice to have one of those in the collection. And the turret rotates. That's about it. One of the things you'll find with these 3D printed things is that the small details, particularly on the cannons, is not very good. The other thing is that the smooth, flat surfaces often have sort of lines in them or patterns almost from the printing process. So anyhow, so that's Renault FT. Then we got our Schneider, and you can sort of see the guns on this are really just little, try to get the shadow out of there of my hand. You can see it's just little nubs sort of the guns, but still, at least for the sake of sort of placeholders until I do someday get better models of these. And of course the Saint Chamond. And the paint does help the texturing issues a little bit by taking the gloss off, but you can still see it. And you can see that, again, the machine gun barrels, they're just like a little tube sticking out of there. But still, Saint Chamond, fun to add to the collection, and it's, this thing's just a big vehicle. Next up, we have the US M47 in 1/72 scale. This is one that's been driving me nuts for years because nobody makes a good 1/72 scale M47. A tank that was built in like the thousands, but nobody thinks it's worth making a decent model of. And this one, again, the detail's not great. The barrel on the gun is just way too thick. The hull doesn't look too bad. And overall, it's fine, particularly for the price. And like I said, it'll be a placeholder. If I was really ambitious, I suppose I could take a 90mm gun from another kit, cut that one off, and slide or glue a new one in there. But probably not really worth the effort. But hey, at least I finally have a representation of an M47 in my collection, just to make it complete, to have all the major U.S. post-war vehicles. Next, we have the Ltv Lv Tp5. So this is the huge tracked amphibious personnel carrier. These were used in Vietnam. This one has it's got a turret with a 105mm howitzer. Again, the turret does rotate, and it's, like I said, if it wasn't for the weird hatching effect on the flat surfaces, this would actually be a pretty nice one. The detail's pretty good. And like I said, this is not a vehicle that I've seen many pre-builds out there of. The only amphibian tanks I've seen are like the World War II era ones. So it's fun to see this big Vietnam era thing. And it is a huge vehicle. And speaking of huge vehicles, here we have another one I could not help but resist to add to the collection. The TOG-2. Sort of the later version with the 17-pounder. You can see again the texturing issues with the printing. Otherwise, the detail's not bad. Again, the gun barrel is a little thick and sloppy, especially the muzzle brake. But hey, it's a TOG-2 that I can add to my collection, and it is, God, just a massive vehicle. And you can see on the underside how thick the tracks are in relation to the width of the vehicle overall. Next up, this one here is the post-World War II British Charioteer. This was an attempt to make a Cold War tank out of a Cromwell hull with this really thinly armored, awkward, tall turret with this 20-pounder gun. Ironically, when I ordered this, I wasn't really paying that much attention, and I thought I was ordering the Challenger, the World War II Challenger, but I got it. I'm like, oh, it doesn't have the right number of road wheels. I'm like, oh wait, it's a Charioteer, so, which is fine. I didn't have either vehicle, but, sometimes you just sort of, you're up late at night, you see something, you're like, oh, add that to the cart, and you don't even realize exactly what you're adding. This one, it's not bad, but again, the gun barrel is a little, like on all these I've noticed, tends to be a little thick and sloppy looking. And you got the weird texturing issues again with the flat surfaces. And the last one is sort of the interesting, this is the Israeli, was it Sultan, I think this was called the L-33? Anyway, it's one of their 155mm guns that they put on a big box on top of a Sherman hull, and again, a vehicle I've never even seen a kit for, so kind of cool to add this to my collection. Anything that's a Sherman variant, I like to add. And yes, this color is not the right color for his. This paint was supposed to be like German dark yellow, and it's brown. I don't know. Anyhow, it was the closest thing I had, so I put it on this one rather than the green I put on the rest. So that is the latest of my 1/72 scale model reviews. Would I order more 3D printed vehicles? Possibly. I'd probably be more tempted. You know, I was looking, you know, prices on these have come down enough to where it's pretty feasible for the average person. And, you know, I was looking online, there's a couple different places where you can find just an extraordinary number of different digital files and print the stuff out yourself. And I've thought about it, but I just haven't been willing to spend the money on it because I'm busy doing other things like making videos for you guys. So anyway, hope you have enjoyed this or found it somewhat useful. For those curious, I am working right now on the next episode for the Tanks of World War II, Panzer 38. I'm going to be recording that next, and then it'll probably take me a couple days to edit. So thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.